Well, in my mind, this has got to be top 10 most misunderstood passages in all of the Bible. And I want to suggest to you that it really shouldn't be. Let's look at the letter of James chapter 2, verse 24. James writes this: "You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone." Now, Martin Luther, the church reformer, was so offended by this verse, and really the letter of James as a whole, that he wanted it taken out of the New Testament entirely, which proves that even great theologians fall into the trap of not believing all of their Bible. And the reason that he was so offended is because really in his mind, James was obviously contradicting Paul. Paul says in places like Romans 3:28, "For we hold that one is justified by faith apart from works of the law." And in Luther's mind, here comes James contradicting salvation through faith alone by coming along and saying, hey, justification is by faith and works. But I must confess to you that I don't know why there is so much controversy. I want to suggest to you that there's no conflict at all between what the Apostle Paul is saying and what James is saying. James is not in any way saying that we are not saved by faith alone as Christians. He doesn't say that. But he is saying that we cannot be saved by a dead faith. Paul and James are talking about two sides of the same coin. They're each correcting a different mistake. Paul is answering the person who comes along and thinks to themselves that they have to earn their salvation. And he says, no, you are not saved by your works. You're saved by faith alone. While James, on the other hand, is answering the person who really thinks that it is possible, once you're saved, to live like the devil. So Paul is talking about the root of salvation, while James is talking about the fruit of salvation. So please make no mistake about it. Paul and James both agree that a Christian is saved by faith alone. The point that James is emphasizing is that there is a living faith that actually saves someone, and there's a dead faith that does no good at all. There's a dead faith that is useless. Now, what I'm about to say is incredibly important. From James 2:14 all the way through to verse 26, if you make your way through this passage, the contrast that James is addressing is not in any way a contrast between faith and works. It is a contrast between a true faith and a dead faith, a faith that is linked to good works, and a false faith that is barren and useless. Now, the reason verse 24 is so confusing for people is because it has to do with that word that James uses in verse 24, the word justified. Now, if you're familiar with the Bible, you will have recognized that when Paul uses the word justify, he uses it to mean the act whereby God declares us to be righteous. But none of Paul's writings had even been written yet. And it's not uncommon, of course, in the New Testament, even in living, where you use different words to mean different things in different ways. So when James uses the word justified here, he uses it with a different meaning. He means to vindicate or to validate. So we often use the word in that way. Sometimes someone does something wrong and they try to defend themselves. And we say, oh, you're just trying to justify yourself. That is, they're trying to vindicate that what they did was okay. That is exactly how James uses the word justified here in verse 24. When he says, you see that a person is justified or validated by their works. James is saying that a dead faith produces no works, but a living faith produces works. There will be fruit that comes from our faith. Just like the children's song years ago, if you're saved and you know it, then your life will surely show it. John Calvin said that faith alone justifies, but faith that justifies is never alone. And then, if you scroll all the way down to verse 26, James's point becomes more clear. He says, for as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. A human being has a body that is visible and a spirit that is invisible. And James is saying, listen, a body without the spirit or without the breath of life in it is nothing but a corpse. And just as a body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. Our invisible faith is shown to be a living faith because of our works. Now, please don't misunderstand James at all. He doesn't want you to just add works to your faith. He wants you to have the right kind of faith, because the right kind of faith, a God-given living faith, will produce works. So are we saved by our works and faith? No, we are saved by faith alone. But your faith, if it is a living faith, will naturally produce good works, because that is what living faith does. It produces works. Back in December, my wife and I took our kids to Disneyland. But a couple weeks before we went, our transmission went out. And of course, we weren't happy about that, and we weren't going to get to Disneyland without a transmission. So we paid a bunch of money to get a technician to examine it, and then he found out that we really needed a new transmission. So we spent a lot of money and we put one in. But to have a successful journey, we had to make sure that our Suburban was in working order. Friends, if we examine things before we go on a 200-mile journey, surely we will regularly examine the most important thing in our life, our faith. We need to make sure that our living faith is in working order. Well, thank you so much. If you like this, if you've enjoyed it, smash the like button, and that'll push this video out to more and more people that can be blessed by it. Well, thank you so much. God bless you in the way.